to the Point of Impact podcast with Rick McDaniel. Thanks for joining us today. Get ready to be inspired and motivated to live a high-impact life. Now, here's Rick.
Welcome to the Point of Impact podcast. I'm Rick McDaniel. It's great to have you joining us today as we are getting rolling in season 7. Had a couple episodes already. But for those of you that listen all the time, you know how we do it here. But for those of you that are listening for the first time or new to this season, for instance, what we do is basically two different things. We take a theme and we go, 4 or 5 episodes digging deep into that theme. Or we take what I just call one-off episodes. We just take a single subject about something like I've done the last 2 weeks and I'll do again today and just explore that. So we're going to do one more of those today. And on a theme, we did success the last 2 weeks. Now we're doing another theme that listeners always like me to talk about, which is stress. So today it's 10 secrets of the less stressed. And this is a little different approach than I've taken in some of the other stress episodes. So I think you're going to find it very helpful, and I'm excited to share it with you today. But then after today, then we'll start doing a series of episodes on the theme of regrets. Having regrets. What do you do with regrets? And I'll start out with kind of like an opening message of where I'll be speaking in a live setting. That'll be recorded. And then we'll go into the 5 greatest regrets that people who were dying have said, these are my big 5 regrets. And we'll just drill down into each one of those big 5 regrets. But we'll start next week with just a good overview of, regrets and what can we do about these regrets that we have in our lives. So that's what we're going to do. Then we'll return back to some one-off episodes, and we'll get up there near Thanksgiving and the holidays and Christmas. And then we'll kick off the new year with another theme. So that's how we do it around here. And we don't do interviews hardly ever. I wouldn't say never, but in 225 episodes, maybe 10 interviews. So unlike a lot of podcasts that are interviews, this is not that kind of podcast. This is a podcast that we cover content. Stress today, last week's success, regrets as we move forward. And we found that a lot of people enjoy it. And again, there's plenty of podcasts out there for interviews. This is a little more unique, which I think is why a lot of people like it. And you can keep listening to your interview podcast. And again, every once in a while I'll do one. But by and large, we're going to dig deep into different subjects and spend a half an hour looking at them. Now, not long form. We're not going to spend 2 hours, but we'll take a half an hour and we'll explore it like we will today with stress. Let me just also say the book Maverick Leadership that I am a contributor to, along with a lot of other sharp people, West Point people who have had success in business, just some really sharp folks that going to bring a lot of interesting insights into leadership. My chapter is entitled Inspirational Leadership. You can go to maverickleadershipbook.com, take a look at it. It'll be coming out on October 15th. So not far from now, just a couple more weeks, and it'll be coming out. I look forward to sharing that book with you and talking about how we can have more inspirational leadership, which we absolutely desperately need. Also have a new Bible reading plan out on the Bible app, the Gigantic YouVersion Bible app. This is my 10th plan. So I have 10 different plans that you can listen to. This newest one's called Power Up. The most popular one is called Mindset Matters, although this one is rocketing up. It's really, really been popular, and so it is a lot of people. So you can, those are all free. You just go on the Bible app and sign up, and they're 5 days long, so it's not like it's going to take you a long time to be able to do it. So I would encourage you to take advantage of that free resource that is available to you. All right, so today, 10 secrets of the less stressed. And as I've said here just a moment ago, in doing entire episodes, and I've done a number on stress, and I've looked at stress from a variety of different ways, but today I'm going to talk about some simple practical behaviors that can prevent stress from accumulating. while also improving how you're able to show up for other people, your full self, your best self. We need these practical behaviors. Stress doesn't just come from tasks that we have to do and people and problems. It comes from juggling what you might call micro decisions all day long. And if you can automate, batch, pre-decide, then you're going to create more mental breathing room. And that is what is needed to live a less stressed life. Now, as I've talked about before, there's aspects of stress that are good. So you actually never want to be stress-free. So it's not 10 secrets of stress-free living. It's 10 secrets of the less stress. How can you have less stress? Because some stress is good and positive. And if you don't believe that, go back and listen to that episode, The Benefits of Stress, and you'll see. But we don't want too much stress. And as I've talked about before, when you have too much stress, you really are in distress, and you don't want to be in distress. So this isn't about doing more as much as conserving your cognitive energy. Almost all of these practices are designed to reduce decision fatigue. Most of them are preventative, not reactive. Very big difference between the two. Most people, when they think about stress management, it's like something you do after stress builds up. Here, the focus is on, say, structural or systematic practices like prepping, scheduling, syncing, we'll get into all of it, that stop stress from compounding in the first place. So the goal today is to give you these 10 practical, and I would say simple practices that if you will put them into practice, what you will find is that it keeps stress from building up, or so much stress from building up. There are things that we simply cannot control, and that's going to happen in life. But there are things that we can do that will simply put, create less stress. The secrets of the less stressed. Life always introduces surprises. It just does. I got a shocking piece of news yesterday about someone passing away that I had known very well and moved away, but there's no reason to think that there was anything wrong there, at least, initially. And wow. So it can be loss. It can be, a big disappointment, which I also experienced one of those about a month ago. So this is life now, like no one wants these things. But if you don't have any space or margin, and I've talked about it before, but I like to repeat things because there are always new people listening. And some of you have been listening. You're like, talk about that margin again, because I do need to sort of be reminded about that. What happens without margin is then even small disruptions can create, you might say, outsized stress. Like the stress is greater than it should be, really. So margin, white space, whatever you want to call it, is about adaptability. It's not about laziness. These practices are building resilience. It's not just like extra time, like I need margin to do nothing. No, that's not what we're talking about. Even though, of course, doing nothing, no. But sometimes what people think is doing nothing is actually a time to think, to create, and we all need that. I just saw where someone was talking about how they had taken a trip, what most people would call vacation, but they were packaging it differently than that and saying they went away to sort of think and create and have this unblocked time. And I mean, sure. And they were over in Europe, and, I've been there many times, and there is something about, just sitting at a cafe and you're having Americano or cappuccino, whatever you like. I like Americano. My wife likes cappuccino. And just sitting there, without talking or listening or anything like that, watching something and just thinking and allowing stuff to come to you. All right, let's just jump in here. These 10 practices, these 10 secrets. First one, prep the night before. Talked about this in success episodes, and it needs to be repeated within this stress concept. So, I mean, this is just like, like laying out your clothes, like, prepping your bag, your briefcase, whatever, your backpack. I'm actually a briefcase guy. I know I walk around with a briefcase and it's like everyone's got backpacks, but I'm a grown man, so I don't carry a backpack. Not, 20-year-old college student. So anyway, your writing, this is huge, writing your to-do list the night before. So you do all that the night before. And I've talked before about how this is a great thing to do on a Sunday night as you start a new week. Extremely important. Extremely important. But, you know the stories, why did Steve, Jobs always wear black? I have a cousin, same thing, always black t-shirt, black pants, just always, why Zuckerberg always wearing, hoodies, whatever. It's just, and even President Obama was known for having, sort of a very limited, he would say, I don't need any more decisions to make. I don't want to enter my day. I have plenty already. So let's just make it simple, lay out the clothes. Not saying you have to wear black all the time, by the way. I don't. I'm just saying that, just get ahead of it. So in other words, you're starting your day ahead. You're not playing catch up. You're ahead. Now that is an enormous shift. I'm telling you, and maybe, you've never experienced this. You don't appreciate it. You don't understand how incredible it is to get ahead each day, to start your day ahead instead of feel like you're catching up. Try it. Prep the night before and prep Sunday night for the new week. Second secret, always arrive early. Just plan to arrive 10 minutes early. So then you're never rushed. And if you do hit every stoplight, if you do hit traffic, if you do hit an accident, come upon an accident, construction, you've got margin. So, by the way, just, make sure we understand margin, white space. In other words, margin is just having that buffer. And when I've talked about before, it's a buffer in your time, your finances. It applies in many aspects of life. Relationships, you need margin. Everything can't be so tightly put next to each other. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. And then the other thing about arriving potentially early, right, is that you're like calm becomes your default instead of like it's a lucky accident, like you're not rushing and you're not in that kind of stressed, pressured, chaotic kind of mindset and feeling like, I just got here in time, all that. You might want to do, it's an old one, but like my alarm clock, is like 10 minutes fast. The clock in our bedroom is 10 minutes fast. Now you say, well, don't you know it's 10 minutes fast? Well, yeah, you do know, right? You do know that. But it's funny how when you just take a quick look, unless you keep reminding yourself of that, then you're just like, oh man, whoa. And so it's amazing how just starting your day 10 minutes early, try it. All right, third, schedule what matters. And there's really two different principles here. The first is one I'm very well known for. People have quoted me on it, stolen it, whatever, a lot. You may have heard my name associated with this one. Schedule your priorities. Don't prioritize your schedule. In other words, you don't look at your schedule, say, for the week, like say it's a Sunday night, right? And you talking about making the to-do list for that week. And then you just look at your schedule and you try to prioritize it. No. What you do is you look at your schedule and you you schedule in your priorities. You schedule them in. Now you might say, well, I can't do that this week. Schedule is already set. Okay, but this is the principle. You schedule in your priorities. Then all the things that are important get done. So if it's important to you to have a daily time with God, a devotional time, read a devotion like one of the ones in my books, Greater or This Is Living, and then have some time prayer, you schedule it in. If it's important for you to get to exercise at least, say, 3 or 4 times a week, you schedule it in. If it's important for you to make sure your marriage is a priority, then you schedule in a date night, or you schedule in what my wife and I did for years, which was a lunch instead of a date night. That's, whatever works for you. If these things are important, you schedule them in. You don't look at your schedule and try to move things around. The second part of this schedule, what matters is, you don't count on memory or leftover time to make it happen. And this is a big principle, this sort of leftover. It's like even giving to God, like to a church, right? And you're like, well, if I got any money left over at the end of the month, I'll shoot God some money. That's not what the Bible teaches. The Bible teaches it's all God's, by the way. And you schedule it in. The first 10% goes to God. Then you work with the rest. Not, I'll do it all and if there's any left over. Well, the same principle applies. There's 2 great resources, right? In life, money and time. So in the time bucket, it's the same thing. You don't look at, well, if I got any leftover time, no. Now, there's more, I could talk a bunch more on this because I'm such a time guy, but, this is like making sure that you've got these weekly check-ins, like with your team, for instance. I just don't know how people don't have weekly staff meetings. I know, there's lots written on, meetings and death by meeting and all that. There's ways to schedule meetings, plan meetings, and run meetings that's not the case. But having a weekly staff meeting, I just don't know how you can not check in. And the same thing would apply to your family. Again, going back to my wife and I, we had this Friday lunch for years, and that was a chance to check in and look at schedule, look at what's coming up, talk about anything that's going on, and it's just vitally important. Fewer surprises, fewer fire drills, if you'll take more intentionality with your scheduling what matters. All right. 4th, reset quickly. So you're feeling really stressed. Okay. So then what's the one thing that that can bring you back to calm the fastest? So some people, it's just like a deep breathing thing, like slowly breathe in for 5 or 7 seconds and then slowly blow out your breath 5 to 7 seconds. It might be something like listening to some music. It might be taking a walk. It might be going and working out, pumping some iron. Or it might be something else. It doesn't matter what it is. It's not for me to tell you what, resets you, calms you. But what is that thing? Know what it is so that you can go to it. Use it when you're stressed then. Don't just push through, because that's not the secrets of the less stressed. It's how can I get rid of this stress? What can I do with this stress that I'm feeling? All right, 5th secret, create systems. An enormous believer in this. Again, these are things that in other settings I've talked about before, but systems are the way to go, because once you create the system, then the system just runs. It just runs. So this could be something like setting up things on as simple as like auto pay, just like things are automatically. So you're never, oh my gosh, you just got an overdraft fee, or I just got a late charge or whatever. I just got caught up with what I was doing and now I'm stressed out financially after being stressed out, which is what kept me from paying, It's set up the systems, recurring reminders. Recurring reminders like, today's this, or this is the anniversary's coming up, or birthday, or, this trip commitment. Saving preferences, just stuff that you can just get to quickly and easily, and just creating up any kind of system, whether it's so you can make sure you do get those 3 or 4 workouts in a week, so you have a system. It's not like, when will I go? No, you go, just like when I go to the gym, okay, I go the same time and the same days, and I see the same people, the same exact people, because we're all on a system. That's how it works. Automate repeatable actions. And you can do that in any good thing. Just, my time with God, it's the same it's right in the beginning of the day. Like before my feet hit the ground, I want to spend time with God. I want to make sure that I am in communion with Jesus, that I am at a place where I am open to God's direction in my life, where I'm talking to God about the things that concern me in prayer and praying for people that I care about and love, and asking for God's blessing. All those sorts of things happens the same time. Just create the systems and then let the systems just automate. Less stress. Here's an interesting one. Keep one list. In other words, just use one place to track everything. Instead of over here, you've got stuff that's got to do, say, with your finances and your bills. And then over here, you got stuff that has to do with errands and home repairs or whatever. And then over here, you have stuff that's got to do with your actual to-do list and work. And then, where's that list? Where am I? Just keep it all in one place. Now, again, not all on one list, but you just got different lists, different pages, whatever. Just keep it all together. Fewer lists means less stress and less slipping through the cracks. And what happens, by the way, when stuff slips through the cracks? More stress. That's how it happens. Now you're stressed out because you forgot to do something and something didn't get done. And the answer is, let's just keep one place to track everything. Or, you can get a journal book or whatever. You can do it on your phone, your computer, whatever works for you. Here's another one. It's so simple and yet so just stuff doesn't slip through the cracks, which keeps the stress from happening. Capture it for later. In other words, when something pops into your head, write it down. Stop trying to store everything in your brain. And then you forget, and then the thing that you forgot ends up creating stress for you because you should have done it and you didn't. And the answer is when it pops into your head, I just have a pad and a pen next to my right hand that I write with. On the counter, at my desk, at my one on my nightstand. I have 3 pads in those 3 places. So if something occurs to me, I can write it down. And then I don't forget. Sometimes I'll be praying and God will just bing, give me an idea, or I'll just I would believe in my faith believes that God just is reminding me what about that person? You haven't checked in on them. How are they doing? Or, what about this thing? And I can write that stuff down so I don't lose it. Don't forget about it. All right. Then here we'll just call it the building in margin, building in white space. Just want to make this a separate practice beyond just what we're talking about in the introduction here. Here's what it looks like. Keeping open blocks in your day. Don't schedule back-to-back meetings. And if you say, well, I've got to have these meetings, then do like what do the therapists do? They have 50-minute meetings, right? Then they have a 10-minute margin, a 10-minute white space, a 10-minute buffer, whatever term you want to use before the next, so they can clear their head, maybe check on a message or something, and before they jump in or review their notes from the previous session before they get ready for the next one. So don't just do back to back. Add in 10 or 15 minutes between tasks or meetings. Give yourself room, to be able to move and not feel like you're behind, and then you've got this stressed feeling. Doesn't have to be there. Leaving margin in your schedule, now watch this, makes you better at handling the unexpected. Does the unexpected visit you? Yes, it visits all of us. What do you do about the unexpected? It's gonna come. If you're back to back to back to back, you're in trouble. But if you have margin, you're not in trouble. If you don't have margin, you're stressed. With margin, you're less stressed. It works, friends. It absolutely, positively works. All right. Identify your top 3. In other words, you start your day by picking your 3 most important tasks. Those are the things you have to get done. And getting them done will take away a lot of your stress. Everything else then is not urgent. Urgent, emergency. Like if you let yourself, you'll just be putting out fires all day long. Everyone's problem is the biggest thing. It's the fire. It's urgent. It's an emergency. But of course, that's not true. That's not true. That's not how life works. So identify your top 3 tasks that you have to get done, and then go about working on those 3 tasks and making sure they get done. And the other stuff gets filled in when it gets filled in. And the other stuff that's unexpected is in those margins that you've already created. But you know that you are going to accomplish the things you absolutely must accomplish. Now, you might say, I don't even know what my top 3 are. Well, that's a big subject right there. You've got to have more intentionality in your life then, if you can't identify the 3 things that you need to get done. Hopefully you can. And then the final secret practice here, the way that you can be less stressed, is to protect what most people these days call deep work. It's not a term that was always out there, but what it is like, this is like the thing I've got to be able to do that takes a lot of my thinking, and I can't be interrupted with phone calls and texts and emails, and I refuse to allow myself to be interrupted by those things. So you block out a certain stretch of focus each day. Many people, but not all people, because there are plenty of night people, but many people will use they feel like the early part of the day is when they're freshest, and so they want to get on that. So for instance, I never took breakfast meetings. I had a ton of lunch meetings in my life. I would easily have 4 lunch meetings a week, but never breakfast meetings, because I wasn't going to give up that. And when you have to speak every Sunday like I did for years, you got to have uninterrupted stretch of time for the deep thinking. Real progress beats scattered effort every single day and twice on Sunday. I mean, that's just a fact. So you need to have that one stretch of focus each day to focus on that which takes the greatest part of your thinking, your thinking power. You really need to just say, okay, I really need to think about this and figure it out. What am I going to do? How am I going to handle? So many stressful things happen because you quickly made a decision, because you didn't think long and hard enough about it, and then it turned out to be a bad decision, and then that decision creates stress. And the answer is have the time blocked away. Now, these are so practical. And what I'm hoping is that as I'm talking, you're like, oh, there's a couple things here. Boy, if I put this into my life could get a lot less stressed. And I'm going to tell you what it could. Maybe not all 10, maybe not 5, maybe 1. I don't know. But I hope at least 1 that you can start doing, and maybe more than that will really, really benefit you and give you just a better quality of life. God doesn't want you to run around without peace and stressed and all that. That's not his plan. His plan is for you to be at peace And in this crazy world we live in, that's not an easy thing to do. And I'm not saying you have a stress-free life, but you can have less stress with these 10 practices. I hope that you will adopt them into your life. All right. Have a great week.
You've been listening to the Point of Impact podcast with Rick McDaniel. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to you joining us for our next episode.